When you see the word perfect, what do you think of? Maybe you thought of a flawless face, an impeccable job, an immaculate definition that describes exactly what the word perfect means. Flawless, impeccable, immaculate, perfect. Are these synonymous words actually achievable? Can someone or something actually be perfect? The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines the word perfect as being entirely without fault or defect, flawless, satisfying all requirements, accurate. In life, we normally aim for a particular career because we have been greatly impressed by the achievements of the most successful practitioners and leaders in the field. We look at public figures like Steve Jobs, Oprah Winfrey, Michael Jordan, and Kylie Jenner, and base our standards of success on them. Ultimately, we form our career plans based on what we consider perfection and then try to take our own first steps, and trouble begins. But let's take a step back and uncover the truth to explain this phenomena.
We all like to feel good about ourselves. We like knowing that we make people happy. We like knowing that we are good at things. The desire to feel good about ourselves is what drives us to be the best we can be. The question is, where do we learn the desire to be the best? And how do we decide what the best really is? There are many answers to these questions, which include, how did our parents express their acceptance of our actions? How did the schools we attend show their approval of our work? In addition to our families and teachers, how did our athletic coaches push us to be the very best? And how did our art teacher decide whose artwork was good enough to put out on display? In other words, what makes one person more perfect than the other? Each and every one of us has been in a position where we have been praised, punished, and judged for our work and actions. Some of us are perfectly happy with who we are and the work that we do. Others will strive to do better, but also understand that they need to balance every aspect of their lives. This means that they realize that putting too much effort into one thing will likely put some strain on another part of their lives. And lastly, there are those that will work to the point of absolute perfectionism, no matter what the cost. A perfectionist has a hard time seeing that their perfection can cost them time, relationships, and money. This is when perfect becomes a problem. Let's step back to the beginning and explore how a child comes up with the idea of being perfect. First, we learn from watching others. It starts at home. As a child, we notice how our room and playroom are organized. Our bookshelves might be lined up by book size. Our closets might be organized by color, and the toys may be organized into buckets of similar types of toys. And how about the people around us, our parents, teachers, and coaches? Every single day we notice things that look good or right to us. And because of that, we strive to model after the good things we have seen. The second way we learn about being more perfect is through positive reinforcement. One of the best ways to teach a child good behavior is to praise them every time they do something good. The more our parents praise us, the more perfect we think we are. Imagine being that child I mentioned earlier. He noticed how nice his room always looked, so he tried to clean it up just like his parents always had. When his mom walks in the room and sees his hard work, she smiles and tells him how great it is. That positive praise feels great, so the child decides to keep doing it. Once the child enters grade school, the positive feedback comes from the teachers. The teacher may comment on how nice the student's handwriting is and how organized the student's binders and paperwork are. The more the teacher praises the student, the more the student wants to keep doing good work. This attention to detail in their schoolwork usually leads to good grades, which is another reward for doing good work. Now imagine you're in college. The professors are not going to compliment you on your great handwriting or your organized binders. Your rewards are now in your grades. In college, you take exams. You get a score. The closer your score is to 100, the more perfect you believe you are. You want to be the best, so you spend an incredible amount of hours studying, not to get a good grade, not to get an A, but to get the perfect score, 100 out of 100. Perfectionism. But we must ask ourselves, once we are in the business world, what is perfectionism costing the perfectionist and the people around him?
Meet Jane. Like you, she is striving to be a strong leader in her workplace. As a business leader in her company, she leads 50 employees, but struggles with perfectionism. She often finds herself frustrated at work due to the effects perfectionism has on her, though she doesn't realize it. So today, we want her to know what the consequences of perfectionism are on leaders and employees. If we're looking at leaders, the main issue is that it makes leaders waste time. This is arguably the most relevant consequence for leaders, as they already have limited time to complete their tasks. Work being done is more important than work being perfect. Perfectionism will cause leaders to spend more time than is necessary on little details, which in turn can prevent a project from being completed. If you are a perfectionist, you try to do most of the work yourself. 2. Multitasking and shifting project focus becomes a hassle. When it comes time for a leader to work on multiple projects at the same time, it is a dilemma when they try to make every project perfect, as this is a massive time sink that can cause problems if one project is neglected to make another one perfect. As a leader, you cannot put too much focus into one project at work, or you risk lowering the quality and time available to complete another project. 3. Stunts personal growth by preventing learning opportunities. A leader's goal is not only to ensure the success of their followers, but also to achieve great personal growth, which in turn results in a better experience for their followers. Leaders need to accept that everything they do in the workplace cannot be perfect. Growing opportunities are created from failure. It is impossible for a leader to improve if they want to get everything perfect on their first attempt. This may also lead to a reliance on specific habits and an inability to adapt, which in many fields can cause the leader to become replaceable. It is important that leaders keep their minds open to different ideas and accept that not everything has to be done in one way. 4. Once a certain point is reached, future work will decline in quality. The quality of work one does is usually at its strongest at the beginning stages and middle stages of the project. Once you reach a certain point, the amount of time needed to continue to improve the project reaches a point that it is inefficient to continue working. Efficiency is an important concept for leaders to comprehend, and ideally, a leader will be as efficient as possible. Spending a large amount of time for a small amount of gain sounds unappealing, and that is exactly what perfectionism causes. We've been talking about the effects perfectionism has on leaders, but what about the effects on others, such as followers of the leader? 5. Prevents leaders from communicating and teaching their followers. As mentioned previously, a leader's goal is to help guide a follower and in many ways teach them what skills they will need to complete specific tasks. Perfectionism will cause large issues with followers who do not believe in it the same way. Followers who do not believe in perfectionism will have a hard time working with a leader who does, and communication between the two can be a big issue towards the later periods of a project. Without proper communication, it is very unlikely that a project will be completed in a timely fashion. There is also a risk of leaders passing bad habits down to their followers, which will create a bad work environment within a company. 6. Perfectionism creates a need for micromanagement. A leader cannot enforce perfectionism among their followers without some form of micromanagement. While micromanagement is not always a bad thing, on a regular basis it can start to cause issues and will have lasting effects if it is not handled quickly. Micromanagement can cause followers to resent their current job duties, and the lack of freedom that they have will many times cause a lower quality product. It can also lead to an increased turnover rate, which we'll discuss later on. 7. Creates a poor environment when mixed with non-perfectionist leaders. Leaders of differing projects in the workplace will oftentimes have to collaborate in order to succeed. Leaders who are perfectionists can clash with other leaders who are not perfectionists. Differing opinions can many times lead to increased discussion, creativity, and a greater finalized product. But this always depends on exactly what the argument is about, and many times perfectionism will not lend to constructive arguments. 8. Leading to a greater turnover rate. Perhaps the biggest issue for a company as a result of perfectionism is the threat of an increased turnover rate. Followers who disagree with perfectionism or cannot adapt are very likely to leave if things do not change with the leader's philosophy. This is a very expensive consequence that companies will do whatever is needed in order to prevent.
Now that Jane knows that perfectionism has many consequences for leaders like herself and you're probably asking, how do we resolve this issue? First, recognize that it is a weakness masquerading as a strength. Perfectionism isn't a driver to success, it's a barrier. You got to where you are based on being capable and motivated. However, you won't truly change your perfectionist ways without accepting it's a liability and not an asset. As Jane chooses to chase perfection, she is actually choosing to keep everything in her life, including her career, limited and small. In her desire to fulfill the imagined standards of her mind, she prevents what is truly possible, that which is beyond her imagination, from coming to her. Therefore, recognize perfectionism as a weakness. Second, delegate and trust. Perfectionists often feel that they will be seen as successful leaders if they can do it all. The opposite is actually true. A good leader is able to delegate some tasks and projects and focus on the important high-leverage areas. Therefore, Jane should set clear expectation. Lewis Carter, CEO of BPI, says, "As employees begin to prove the execution and quality of their work, less micromanagement is necessary. That being said, checking in on work, setting clear expectations and values is essential to ensure the very best outcomes." Additionally, instead of delegating tasks by dumping busy work on someone and watching over their shoulder, delegate opportunity. Trust people with key projects and support them as needed. Delegate and trust. Third, be present. Because perfectionists have a tendency to overly rehearse and prepare for presentations in order to memorize every word, whether it be in a meeting or one-on-one, we advise Jane to internalize her content and not memorize it. Perfectionists should only memorize opening and closing sentences, making sure that they stay in the moment and are flexible. When your business listeners see that you not only know your stuff, but you have the confidence to be spontaneous, your leadership presence will skyrocket. Being flawless and slick is not always engaging. Be present in every situation. Fourth, strive to be exceptional, not perfect. This means you're open to making mistakes, open to failure, and also open to learning from mistakes and failures. Mistakes are the best areas you can learn. Therefore, Jane should learn to work with what she has. Business leaders get paid to make decisions with either imperfect or incomplete information. Jane needs to be the leader who can adapt to the situation at hand and keep moving her organization forward. Be exceptional, not perfect. Lastly, remember that done is better than perfect. The earlier you can get your work out the door and into the hands of your customers, the sooner you can get valuable feedback on your work and everyone gets to benefit from what you've produced. Repeat this. Go for progress, not perfection. The goal is to always keep yourself in a growth-oriented mindset where you're focused on learning, experimenting, and getting better. Don't lower your standards, but endless tweaking and waiting for the right time is a manifestation of procrastination and fear. Remember that perfectionism is far from perfect.